An argument over the hospital release of a double amputee ended with him being found dead a short distance away next to his wheelchair in 20 below zero wind chill. A lawsuit has been filed over the death. So many questions linger, even though we've learned much more in our latest Troubleshooter investigation. Until now, our investigations into allegations of hospital patient dumping or neglect have involved people who didn't want to leave.
I needed to be a patient because I'm sick.
They dumped my son like garbage.
How can you dump people? These are human beings. How can you just dump them?
But what happened at Lake Cumberland Regional Hospital on December 22nd of 2022 involves a man who wanted to leave and an ugly fight over whether he should have been allowed to. The last moments of his life, captured on a security camera. You can't see Donald Perdue at the bottom of this picture, huddled behind an HVAC unit, trying to stay alive following his hospital release after surviving a night with the wind chill plummeting below 20 below zero. But you can see his trembling hand trying to catch the attention of passing cars. They didn't see him, and the next recorded moment is of two police officers walking up to the double amputee, literally frozen on the ground next to his wheelchair, not far from the hospital, on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas.
If he's rogue trying to get the heck out of Dodge, that's as far as he's made it.
How could something like that happen in a country that prides itself on healthcare, heart, and humanity? Well, it's a complicated answer because there was so much more going on leading up to the horrible outcome.
Surprise!
When Donald Perdue severed his spine in a fall and suffered a traumatic brain injury, it only got worse from there. Multiple bouts with sepsis from the amputation of his legs.
After your brother goes septic a few times and you're realizing that he's not the same person and he's not making good decisions for himself, that the only choice is to try to do something, or you just watch your sibling die.
So Donald's sister, Melissa Perdue, went to court and on July 19th of 2022 was appointed legal guardian and sole medical decision maker for her brother.
Aunt Sister got me a back scrubbing brush.
During Donald's hospital stay in December of 2022, Melissa got involved in an argument with the hospital over the phone about whether Donald should be released.
He's basically boarding with us, but we're having to provide all his room and board and care. And I appreciate that you do have guardianship, but given the fact that he's alert and oriented, we cannot physically hold him in this building against his will.
Unfortunately, that's not really legal. There has been a court that has deemed him not capable of taking care of himself, and you guys already know the pattern of what happens and how dangerous he is to himself.
The hospital discovered the call was being recorded.
And let me interject to say, you do not have anyone's permission in this room to record a conversation.
I'll leave that up to the judge.
This is Steve Sloan, I'm the CFO.
The chief financial officer of the hospital entered the conversation.
Your brother no longer meets criteria to be in our facility. You have not appropriately participated in the care plan for him for discharge.
That's not true. I have my phone records.
That's fine. We are going to be seeking financial damages if we do not have a discharge plan for him immediately.
Well, okay, so now there's threats.
All of this going on under a forecast of an epic Arctic blast about to arrive.
Dangerously cold. I don't want to lose one person to this Arctic front that is coming through.
Everyone knew the storm was coming.
But the next morning, Donald Perdue was released from the hospital, and Melissa says she didn't get a call informing her of that until 2:56 p.m. She frantically searched until dark and says police kept updating her all night. Here's what Somerset climate data shows that night was like. Snow and wind chills in the negative teens by 2 a.m., minus 27 by 6 a.m. Here's the only video that shows what Donald Perdue's last moments were like from a security camera at a closed urgent care center down the hill from the hospital. Donald is huddled out of view next to a heating unit in the back of the building, motioning for help. By the time someone sees him, it's too late.
There's no cracks, foot cracks in the snow over here where you can see his cracks come out of there. Yeah. You can see where he's had his hand, where he tried to set a fire where a fire's been going. If he's rogue trying to get the heck out of Dodge, that's as far as he's made it.
So sorry.
Melissa still struggles to share what she learned about her brother's death from police and the coroner.
I know that from the beginning, when it was starting to get cold, that he was fighting to survive. He had found a can that he had cut the top off of it, and he was taking leaves and little pieces of paper and lighting them inside the can. They told me that his body was solid, frozen like ice, and that they couldn't even do their preliminary report that they're supposed to do at the scene when they find someone, because he said we would have all froze to death, was his exact words.
I went to the hospital to get their side of all this. 1 month later, I received a statement from the hospital's attorney. At the time of his departure, Mr. Perdue was not an inpatient, but remained housed in the hospital as a result of 338 nursing homes refusing to admit him. A psychiatric evaluation conducted on December 18th, 4 days before his departure, determined that Mr. Perdue was coherent and of sound mind. He had no acute care needs that required hospitalization. He simply had nowhere else to go, since his sister and temporary guardian would not allow him to live in her home. It cites a report filed by a social worker on December 21st that claimed patient's sister has a guardianship of him, and he states she is financially exploiting him. He states that he receives a disability check, and the sister cashes the check and spends it on herself. And as for the storm coming, it says staff strongly urged Mr. Perdue to stay in the hospital due to inclement weather, but Perdue insisted on leaving of his own volition. Louisville attorney Hans Poppe filed a lawsuit for the Perdue family alleging negligence. He maintains a psychiatric evaluation doesn't trump a court order. The hospital had a duty to find a place for long-term medical care, and he had this to say about the release.
The really unusual thing is that usually when that happens, you know, there's documentation about what's going on then. There isn't any documentation about, okay, Perdue says he wants to leave, we've told him not to. Nothing like that. It goes from he's being treated by a doctor one day, and then the next day the doctor comes in and says he's gone. And I asked if the patient had the right to leave on his own, and management said he did, that he had decision-making authority. But the Commonwealth of Kentucky said he didn't.
While the lawsuit contends Perdue passed by freezing to death, state medical examiner Dr. Ashley Matthew determined the cause of death to be substance abuse. A baggie of white crystalline substance was found on the body. Blood toxicology registered 676 nanograms per milliliter of methamphetamine. As for the 20 below wind chills, the medical examiner concluded the contribution of environmental exposure to the death is uncertain. Poppe says that defies logic, knowing what the conditions were like outside, and says the cause of death doesn't matter because Donald wasn't supposed to be outside the hospital.
Just to let the guy leave when it's going to be sub-zero that night? He's got no blankets. He's got no sleeping bag. Where's he going? You don't even make sure that somebody's coming to pick him up? I mean, there's a court order that you've got that says he is not capable of making decisions for himself. And so you don't even make sure he gets in the car with somebody to take him someplace?
Melissa Perdue never got him in her car, and she's still haunted by it all.
You know that I can't take care of you when you got all these issues and you can't do anything.
I don't know what his last moments were like, and that's the hardest part. I don't know. I know he was alone. And I know that he had way too many people to love him in his life to be alone. And he didn't deserve that.
Now, as for that complaint alleging Perdue's sister was financially exploiting Donald, Melissa calls it, quote, part of their trickery. She says she spent her own money on her brother and showed me a conservatorship savings balance of $7,000 that she says she was saving for him. The lawsuit is in the depositions stage. The hospital's full statement is with the story right now on wave3.com.